Welcome to our full, deep dive documentary about Apple Incorporated, one of the most influential and transformative companies in modern history. In this video, we explore how a small garage startup in California, started by a few visionary engineers and dreamers, grew into a trillion-dollar company, reshaped entire industries, and redefined the way humans interact with technology. We trace the journey from handbuilt computers to revolutionary products like the iPhone and iPad, uncover how Apple's obsession with design, simplicity, and user experience turned it into a cultural phenomenon, and show how it became the ultimate symbol of innovation, creativity, and human-centered technology. In the beginning, before screens glowed in our pockets and technology felt like an extension of the human hand, the world of computing was distant, mechanical, and cold. Machines were massive, intimidating, locked away in corporate offices and research labs, accessible only to trained professionals. Technology existed to serve institutions, not individuals. It was powerful, but it was not personal. And then, quietly, without permission, a small company from California began to question everything. Welcome to a story about vision, rebellion, failure, obsession, and belief. Welcome to the story of Apple Incorporated. This is not just the history of a company. It is the story of how technology learned to speak the language of humans. As you listen, you are not only learning English through real-life history, you are stepping inside one of the most transformative journeys of the modern age. Slow the pace. Let the images breathe. Because this story unfolds not in speed, but in intention. In the early 1970s, America was changing. Counterculture challenged authority, creativity challenged conformity, and young minds questioned why the world had to be the way it was. In Silicon Valley, technology was beginning to take shape, but it was still trapped in complexity. Computers filled rooms. Interfaces were lines of code. There was no beauty, no emotion, no soul. And then, in California, three individuals crossed paths. Steve Jobs, intense, restless, and driven by intuition more than logic. Steve Wozniak, gentle, brilliant, an engineer who saw joy in circuits and elegance in simplicity. And Ronald Wayne, practical, cautious, a grounding force in the early days. Together, they formed Apple, not in a tower or a lab, but in a garage. A place of dust, cables, and dreams. There was no grand strategy, no global ambition at first. There was only a belief that computers should belong to people, that technology should empower creativity, not intimidate it, that simplicity was not weakness, but strength. The Apple I was born from this belief. Hand-built, modest, and perfect. But it worked. And more importantly, it represented something new. The Apple II followed, and this time, the world noticed. Color, design, accessibility. Schools adopted it. Homes welcomed it. Apple was no longer a hobby. It was becoming a force. Music swelled with optimism. The company grew rapidly, fueled by the energy of youth and the confidence of early success. But Apple was never just about machines. From the beginning, it was about experience, about how technology feels, how it looks, how it fits into life. Then came the Macintosh, a moment that changed everything. In 1984, Apple didn't just launch a product. It launched an idea, the graphical user interface, the mouse, typography, design as philosophy. And with one iconic commercial, Apple positioned itself not as a company, but as a movement. A rebellion against conformity. A champion of the creative mind. But vision often comes at a cost. Inside Apple, tensions rose. Power struggles. Ego clashes. Different ideas of leadership. Steve Jobs, the visionary who had helped build Apple, was pushed out of the company he helped create. The tone darkened. The music slowed. Apple lost its compass. The years that followed were difficult. Products lacked clarity. The brand lost focus. Competitors surged ahead. Stock prices fell. Headlines questioned Apple's survival. The company that once symbolized the future now looked like a relic of the past. Bankruptcy loomed close. And yet, stories of transformation rarely end at the lowest point. In 1997, Steve Jobs returned, not as the reckless visionary of youth, but as a focused, disciplined leader. He simplified everything. Cut products, clarified vision, and launched a message that would redefine Apple's identity. Think different, not as a slogan, but as a philosophy. What followed was a renaissance. The iMac brought color and personality back to computing. The iPod redefined music. 1,000 songs in your pocket was not just convenience, it was liberation. Apple was no longer following trends. It was shaping culture. Technology was becoming invisible, seamless, human. And then, in 2007, the world changed again. The iPhone was introduced. A device that combined phone, internet, and media into one object of glass and light. Touch became language. Apps became ecosystems. Entire industries were disrupted. Communication, photography, business, entertainment, all transformed. Apple continued to expand. The iPad reimagined computing once more. The Apple Watch blurred the line between technology and health. The ecosystem grew stronger, more integrated, more intuitive. And through it all, the philosophy remained the same. Simplicity, focus, human-centered design. When Steve Jobs passed away, the world paused. The visionary was gone, but his ideas endured. Under Tim Cook, Apple evolved again. Calmer, more global, more responsible. Privacy, sustainability, services. Apple became one of the most valuable companies in history, not through noise, but through consistency. Yet power invites scrutiny. Critics question pricing, control, labor practices, and influence. Debates intensified. Apple stood at the center of conversations about monopoly, ethics, and responsibility. And still, billions of people continued to use Apple products every day. Creators, students, doctors, musicians. Apple became not just a brand, but a companion, a symbol, a part of identity. As the sun sets over Apple Park, glass reflecting the sky, the story feels both complete and unfinished. Because Apple is not just about what it has built, but about what it continues to question. Technology fades, vision remains, and in that vision lives the belief that innovation is not about machines, but about people. That simplicity can be revolutionary, and that when technology is designed with humanity at its center, it can change not just industries, but lives. As we reach the end of this full, deep dive documentary, we reflect on the extraordinary journey of Apple Incorporated, from a small garage in California to a company that has shaped the way billions of people live, work, and create. We've seen how vision, simplicity, and relentless pursuit of innovation transformed a modest startup into a cultural and technological powerhouse. We've explored the products that changed industries, the ideas that redefined design, and the philosophy that placed humans at the center of technology. Apple is more than a company. It is a symbol of creativity, courage, and the belief that one bold vision can change the world. From its humble beginnings to global dominance, Apple continues to inspire, challenge, and redefine what is possible. Because in the end, technology may evolve, trends may fade, and devices may change, but vision, creativity, and the drive to innovate remain eternal.